Hello everybody and welcome back to the Magic Leap Unity tutorial series. And in this episode we're going to create our first object, just a basic cube, and then we're going to create a simple script that will make the cube follow the controller's position. So what we're going to want to do is make sure we have our project that we started in the last video open. Mine's named First Tutorial, so make sure you have that open in Unity. And the first thing we're going to want to do is add a cube to our scene. So you can go ahead and over in the Hierarchy tab over here, you can right click 3D Object Cube, or you can go to Game Object 3D Object Cube. So we're going to go ahead and add this in here, and you'll see it in the scene view. You can go ahead and look at it. You can rotate around by using on Mac the Alt key, the Option key, and dragging. You can zoom in by scrolling up and down. You can use the right click and drag to move around the object. And you also have this menu bar up here to manipulate the objects. So if you want to move around, you can use that. You can use this to move objects back and forth. You can scale them like that. But let's just go back to the regular one for now. So we have this cube here. Now the unit of measurement on the Magic Leap is meters, so we want to make this cube, we don't want it to be 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter because that's quite large in your hand. So what we're going to do is change the scale to 0.2 on all axes. So here we go. Now the cube is quite smaller than it was before. So here we have the cube. So now that is the correct size that we're going to want to use it. So the next thing we're going to want to do is create our first script. So this script will be attached to the main camera and will run at the start of our game to make the cube's rotation and location equal to that of the controller. So the first thing we're going to do in the Project tab is we're going to right click, Create Folder, and we're going to name this folder Scripts. This isn't necessary when you're creating a project, but it does keep all of your files together and makes sure that you're not confused with anything. So I'd highly recommend using folders when you're developing. So let's go into the Scripts folder, right click, Create a C# script. We can create it in here if we want, or if we want to skip a step, we can just go ahead and go to the main camera and down over here click Add Component, New Script, and we're going to call this Control Script. And we're going to click Create and Add. Now if we create it on here, then we're going to have to go back to the Assets folder, as it created the script on the main level. So we can go ahead and drag Control Script into our Scripts folder. And now we have this script right here on the side. We have this attached to the main camera. So whenever the main camera is loaded, it'll run this script. So we can see it over here, that's fine and dandy, but we're going to want to be able to open it. So we can just double click on this and it'll open it in the editor that is configured in the Unity settings. You can go ahead and look up how to do that, how to change the default editor if you want. I'm not going to go over that in this video just for the sake of time, but if you want to find that out, there are plenty of resources available out there. So once our editor loads up, we'll see our script. So this is just the basic script that is created whenever you create a new script in Unity. So we're going to have to add quite a few lines of code to get it to the point that we need it. So the first thing we're going to need to do is import the Unity Magic Leap. We're going to add a reference to the Magic Leap, all of the Magic Leap code that we're going to need. So we're going to do using Unity engine.xr.magicleap with a semicolon at the end. So that just tells the code that we want to use all of the files that we imported in the last video from the Magic Leap folder in the assets. So now we can access all of this. So the next thing we're going to want to do is declare some variables so we can access our objects from anywhere within the code. So we're going to start by creating a public game object by the name of cube. If my computer would like to load, we can do this. So we can do, actually, we're not going to do a public game object. We're going to do private game object cube. Now this is an uninitialized game object, so if we try and call it, it won't do anything, but we will define it in the future. The next thing we're going to need is a variable by the name of ML input controller that'll handle the controller itself that's connected to the device. So we can do private ML input controller and then controller. So it'll be named controller and we can reference it like that throughout our script. There we go. Alright, so the next thing we're going to need is that's about it. So we have the two variables that we need. Now let's start scripting. So in the start function, this function runs right when the script is called. So if we need to do any calling or anything like that, we can do it here. So the first thing we want to do is assign the cube variable to the cube in our hierarchy view in Unity itself. So the way to do that is we can do cube equals GameObject.find, and then in parentheses and quotation marks we do cube with a capital C and then a semicolon at the end. This will go through the Unity hierarchy view and find the game object with a name of cube. We can be sure of this by going into Unity, clicking on the cube, and over here on the right side, this name is what it is finding. So if you want to change it to something else, you can change this to whatever you want it to be, and then make sure you change it within our code. But now that we have that done, we can go on to get our Magic Leap controller started. So the first thing that we need to do is start the Magic Leap input function. So we can simply do ml input.start. So this will tell Unity to start looking for the Magic Leap controller. Now we need to actually reference the controller by setting our controller variable to the value of the actual controller. So we can do controller equals ml input dot get controller, and then in parentheses ml input dot hand dot left. So this is telling our code that the remote will be held in the left hand. It doesn't matter whether you have the left. You can do ml hand dot left or ml hand dot right. It really doesn't matter. We're just going to leave it at left for now. This will only matter once they release dual controller support. So if you want to have two controllers in one hand and each thing does a different function, then you can do that. But other than that, we'll just leave this for this right now. So that is just about it for our start function. Now before we move to our update function, we're going to want to create a new function called onDestroy. If you type it in, if you have the Unity add-on for your development, for your code editor, it should automatically finish that, but it's just private void onDestroy. And this function is made because we don't, if our app crashes or ends or something like that, we don't want our the ML input to continuously be running. We want to stop it whenever that happens. So we can just do ML input dot stop, just like that, and that's it for that function. Very simple, but make sure you do that to remove any confusion or errors that may occur in your code. So the last thing we're going to want to do is change the cube's position to the position of the controller. And we can do this by doing cube.transform.position equals controller.position. So it'll take the cube that we initialized up here, and it'll set the transform dot position to the controller's position. So the next thing we can do is cube.transform.rotation equals controller.orientation. So this just changes the cube's rotation based on how you're holding the controller. If you flip it upside down, the cube will flip upside down and everything like that. But once you have that done, you can go ahead and save your script, and that is all of the code that we will need for this first project. So once you have all of this done, you can go ahead and jump back into Unity, and you can see we just have some warnings about that's just an error that Unity gives. We don't have to worry about that. But other than that, we have that script completely done, and now the code is ready to be put onto the Magic Leap device. So in the next video, we're going to go over how to get the Magic Leap remote running and how to run the application within the remote and see how our code works. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date and to see the upcoming videos, and I will see you all in the next video.